In a small, quaint town nestled between rolling hills, a courtroom was buzzing with whispers and anticipation. The trial of Emily Watson, a loving mother who had been accused of a serious crime, had garnered the attention of the entire community. She couldn't believe she was standing in the defendant's spot. She didn't even necessarily remember why this had happened exactly. Emily had been gardening in her front yard when the police arrived, cuffing her and reading her Miranda rights. She knew that this couldn't be happening, but it certainly was. Time had been slow ever since, but fast at the same time. She had been caring for her son, Alex, alone, and during the first night was freaking out about his whereabouts. She would later learn that he stayed at a friend's house, but she still feared what would happen to him during this process. She had been advised to lawyer up, as her charges were great, and so she did. She had to go into her savings, but she knew that getting back out to take care of her son was her utmost priority. She had no clue that her little boy would also be called to the stand. Her lawyer tried telling her what to say during the trial and how to act, but she was unsure if she could keep to the script that he had worked out for her. The next person being called to the stand to testify brought her back to the present instead of reminiscing what had been happening for the last few days. Both parties wanted to use Emily's friend as a witness, but Emily's lawyer hoped she would prove more useful for his side than theirs. The courtroom falls into a hush as Emily's friend, Rose Rivera, steps up to the stand, the final words of the oath still in the air. "I've seen Emily go to the ends of the earth for Alex. She'd make him laugh on his worst days and stayed up with him through countless nights. She loves him and would do anything for him," Rose had said, but the prosecutors were quick to start their questioning on Emily's character through Rose's words. "You say that Miss Watson would do anything for Alex. Would you also say that she would have committed the crime she is being accused of if it was for her son?" the prosecutor asked. Rose's gaze shifted to the lawyers and the judge before she started to stammer. "I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know if Emily would be capable of doing such a heinous thing." "Would you say that if Alex were hurting, Miss Watson would do everything she could to stop that hurt?" the prosecutor asked Rose, who hesitated. Trying to find her words, she said, "I think she would, yes." "Did you also know about her altercation with Mrs. James?" At this, Rose frowned, the answer clear on her face. "No, I don't," Rose said, her eyes going from Emily to the lawyer who was asking her questions. "Well, Mrs. Rivera, according to some other parents of whom I have their written testimony, they heard that Miss She had remembered saying this. Mrs. James had always been a rather mean teacher and only wanted the best for Alex. He deserved to be taught with kindness, and Mrs. James certainly hadn't done that. She had seen the shift in Alex. He seemed like the empty shell of the little boy she had raised. She couldn't let that happen. She knew she had to intervene. She had intervened by saying that to the teacher, but she had still threatened her. "You have no right to treat my son like this. If you continue this behavior, I'll ensure you never teach again," Emily had warned Mrs. James, the principal. She hadn't cared that it made her seem like an annoying mother or even a bitch at the time. She would never have thought that it would result in this. Emily's fist clenched under the table as the prosecutor tried painting an ugly picture of who she was and what she had done. The tension in the courtroom was palpable when the next question was asked. "Did Mrs. Watson ever mention taking matters into her own hands?" the prosecutor asked, continuing to press Rose for answers. "Emily can get angry, sure. However, I don't think she would be capable of hurting someone like that," she said. When the prosecutor was finally done, it was now the defense's turn. It had been what Mr. Lawson had prepared for. When he addressed Rose, his voice held a gentle tone. "Mrs. Rivera, you have known Emily for a long time. Is that statement correct?" Rose nodded, her eyes flickering to Emily, who managed a small, reassuring smile. "Yes, we've been friends since our son started school together." Mr. Lawson continued, "In all those years, have you ever seen Emily act violently or express a desire to harm anyone?" Rose was quick to respond. "Never. Emily is caring and loving, especially towards Alex. She's always tried to resolve conflicts peacefully." Mr. Lawson made sure to draw attention to Rose's testament to Emily's caring nature. She recounted the instances when Emily had done voluntary work for the school more than any other parent. However, when asked about Emily's protective instinct, Rose hesitated before admitting, "Emily can be fiercely protective of Alex, but it's only because she wants what's best for him." The courtroom listened intently, the image of a mother fighting against an unyielding system taking shape, exactly as Mr. Lawson had planned. Mr. Lawson asked Rose for a closing statement. Rose paused, her eyes meeting Emily's. The silence in the courtroom was loud. Finally, she spoke. Emily did what she thought was right for her son, but I never believed she could harm anyone. Mr. Lawson nodded, thanking Rose for her honesty, and cast a final meaningful look at the jury before taking his seat. As Mrs. Thompson took the stand, the jury looked expectant. Emily, she began, is a hard-working woman. She's been through a lot. Mr. White, the father of one of Alex's classmates, recounted, I remember a soccer game last spring. Another boy accidentally tripped Alex. Emily was up on her feet yelling and accusing the boy of doing it on purpose. She's fiercely protective, perhaps too much so. Mrs. Martinez added, she attends every school event, but once she argued with a teacher over Alex's grade for nearly an hour. It was the testimonies painted Emily as a complex character, deeply dedicated, undeniably protective, and occasionally overbearing. The atmosphere thickened as Dr. Keller, Alex's therapist, took the stand. Alex struggled with anxiety and feelings of isolation, he began. But through our sessions, it was clear Emily was committed to helping him. Lawson's voice echoed, she was fighting for a better future for every child. Witnesses were brought in, all testifying to instances when Emily was expected but never showed. A missed parent-teacher conference, an unattended community meeting, the night she was notably absent from home. Where was Emily during these times? The prosecutor's question hung in the air, thick with implication, surveillance footage, contradicting testimonies, and unexplained receipts. Each item seemed to further complicate Emily's story. The boy's testimony was vital, but his well-being was paramount. Mom didn't like Mrs. James, Alex started, adjusting himself on the stand. The courtroom leaned in, ears perked. She would complain about her after PTA meetings, Alex continued. Mom called her narrow-minded and unfit to teach. She always said she wished I had a different teacher. The prosecution made a note, their theory possibly getting clearer. Sometimes, after I did my homework, we'd watch TV together, Alex shared. Mom loved those crime shows, detectives, clues, the suspense. She was really into them. Whispers rippled across the room, the relevance not lost on the spectators. At home, Mom was different. She was worried and stressed. Sometimes she'd stare at the TV, lost in thought. But she was always kind to me, Alex emphasized, his loyalty evident. Mr. Lawson stood up, adjusting his glasses. Ladies and gentlemen, if watching crime dramas makes someone a suspect, then half this room should be on trial. He gestured to the TV screens in the room. By this logic, watching medical dramas should make me a surgeon. His words, delivered with reason and wit, cast doubt over the prosecution's insinuations. Alex hesitated, swallowing hard. I heard Mom talking late one night, he whispered. She sounded scared. The courtroom leaned forward, ears straining. He wiped away tears. She said something about having to do something she didn't want to do. One day after school, a man was at our house, Alex continued. I'd never seen him before. Mom introduced him as an old friend, but her eyes, they looked worried. He clutched his hands. They talked in hushed tones, and when I tried to listen, Mom sent me to my room. After that man visited, I started connecting things. Mom watching those shows, her strange behavior. Alex, did you make a call one night? Alex nodded, biting his lip. I called the police on my mom. I thought I was saving Mrs. James. The courtroom gasped, but Emily's expression was one of understanding, even gratitude, that her son had acted out of love. Emily finally spoke, her voice a heart-wrenching whisper. I never knew he felt that way. I was trying to protect him. That man, he was threatening to expose a past mistake unless I paid him, but I never wanted to hurt Mrs. James. The pain of a mother, whose actions were seen so differently by her son, touched every heart. Mr. Lawson rose, clearing his throat. Your Honor, we need to discuss the nature of misunderstandings and their unintended consequences. I can't bear this silence anymore, Emily uttered, trembling. The courtroom leaned in, awaiting her disclosure. The man Alex saw, he wasn't a threat. He wasn't blackmailing me for money. She choked on her words. He was someone I had known intimately from my past. Gasps filled the air. He was my lover, Emily confessed, her face flushed. A relationship I'd kept secret, fearing judgment and its impact on Alex. The truth was out. a secret affair that had been concealed in shadows, and the courtroom was abuzz with murmurs. "I know how it looks," Emily began, eyes teary. "A single mother, secretly seeing someone, but I kept it hidden to protect Alex, to give him stability." She sighed deeply. "My fear was that he'd be ostracized, judged because of my decisions. My silence was for him." Her dedication to her son was evident, even in her missteps. Mr. Lawson signaled for a short recess, hinting that another revelation was on the horizon. As the court reconvened, a tall, shadowy figure entered. "The next witness," Mr. Lawson announced, "is none other than Emily's secret lover." Their messages were projected for all to see. Time-stamped and undeniably intimate, they painted a vivid picture of where Emily was on that fateful night. "As you can clearly see," Mr. Lawson indicated, "Emily was with him, not anywhere near Mrs. James." The evidence was irrefutable. The prosecution was caught off guard, left scrambling to reassess. Emily's relief was palpable, the weight of suspicion finally lifting. The courtroom's demeanor shifted. Doubts were being replaced by clarity, skepticism by belief. The mother who had been vilified was now seen in a different light, as pieces of the puzzle fit perfectly, proving her innocence. The judge, after a brief deliberation, spoke with gravity. "Given the newfound evidence and testimonies, it's clear that Emily wasn't involved in any alleged wrongdoing." A pause. "She's free to go." Applause erupted, tears streamed, and for the first time in months, Emily exhaled a breath untainted by fear. Outside the courtroom, Emily hugged Alex, their bond stronger after enduring the storm together. They were both scarred yet resilient, ready to face a world with newly found strength. Hand in hand, they stepped into the sunlight, prepared to rebuild their life piece by piece.